What is up, you amazing people? It is Nima here, and today I want to talk about a game that I've been playing quite a bit of. It's a game called Macross Shooting Insight. Macross is an anime, for those of you who don't know, and that's really where most of this game's fame come from, or the series' fame, I should say, is that most people know it as an anime from, I believe, from back in the 80s. Honestly, I am uninitiated when it comes to this series in general, and that is honestly why I thought it would be a cool game to check out, because much like other anime games that I've played, like Demon Slayer for one, I really learned a lot about the series playing the game, and ultimately really enjoyed it. It became like this interactive way to learn about the series, catch up on it, and then felt more comfortable actually jumping in and watching the series. And so I was really excited to be able to jump into the series using the game as sort of a jump point, if you will. Now, not only was that exciting to me, but also the game itself looked pretty cool. It looks like a very fast-paced shoot-'em-up, bullet hell type game that can be a lot of fun, especially when it has a bigger overarching story that is something that you're interested in. So let's talk about Macross Shooting Insight. Is this a game that is a love letter to the series and ultimately offer a lot of insight, or is this a game that just sort of misses the mark? Anyway, before we get into that though, I do have to thank the publishers for a review code. I really appreciate that, and I also have to ask you guys, can you please hit that like and subscribe button and help this channel grow? Anyway, I did play Macross Shooting Insight on the Nintendo Switch, so all of the captured video you see is from my Switch. And I'll get started talking about the story because I think that out of everything, this is what I have the least to talk about, because honestly, I didn't know what was going on. Like, I understood that you're trying to save songstresses or something, and in this game you're controlling multiple different characters that are from the Macross' series across all of their series apparently, and there is a bunch of different controllable characters and a lot of controllable vehicles as well. But my point is I really didn't know what was going on, and they didn't really introduce any characters. You just are supposed to know who they are. So if you're a newcomer, you have no clue really what's going on. You do pick up little tidbits from conversations that they have, but for the most part, I have to say, for me, I didn't love the writing. It really, like I said, did not open the door to explain what was going on, and when it did, it was almost expected that you were supposed to know certain things. You were supposed to know the characters, you were supposed to know how they interact with each other, and I just didn't see much building with the writing. It just really seemed to almost be a game that was focused on celebrating the entire series as a whole and for the fans only, which I think is great if you're a fan of the game, but if you're a newcomer, you just feel kind of lost and confused. I also felt that they really missed an opportunity here, because this is, I think, the first game that's been released in America, at least in a very long time, and the series itself has needed a jumpstart. It's needed a resurgence, and I believe that there is enough energy out there for this series that it could take hold. I believe that there's many of us who have heard of this series but have never seen it, never experienced it, and so this would have been a good place to start. Even if you were just going to completely reboot the series itself, awesome. If you weren't going to rely on anything from the past, then you could do that as well, but instead they ended up not doing either one. They didn't really revisit the past in any chronological makeup, and then they also didn't really celebrate a future. To me, it was almost like the end of a series. And I do say the end because when other game series have done this, it has been only as sort of a nostalgic thing. The story itself had nothing to do with past characters coming into it. Think of like Fire Emblem Engage, where yeah, there's a ton of characters from the past, but the actual core story doesn't have that much to do with the characters. You know what I mean? It is building upon new characters, a new story, new things completely, and these past characters just come in as almost like a hint of nostalgia, giving them a little of their flowers, yet at the same time, they weren't really tied into the story, so the game itself had something to grow on. This, as a newcomer, actually makes me nervous to want to get into it further, because this kind of seemed like the death of the series. I'm not saying that is, I'm just saying it is a logical conclusion to jump to that they're actually kind of ending it. And again, I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying that was how I felt. Now, I did talk to some fans from the series, and they said they really liked it, but they did also feel like there was some stuff missing. For them, it was more on the gameplay side. Well, one thing is, once in your ship, your characters have the ability to transform. You can go from sort of a mech, a traditional style mech, if you will, into a ship, and vice versa. The problem is you don't really get to do this whenever you want. It just kind of happens when the game decides it's time for you. And the issue with that too is there's enemy characters that seem to be able to do it when they want to. And that freedom, or lack thereof, was an issue for some people who are familiar with the series. For me, it wasn't a problem at all. In fact, I didn't notice it as being an issue. In fact, honestly, going back and forth between like a 2D side-scroller, 3D, and transforming into a mech, the bullet hell aspect, all of those things I actually enjoyed. But again, I guess the inability to change when you wanted to was definitely an issue for people who are fans of the series and have played other games. But my issue, I would say, with the gameplay overall was just how redundant it got. After a while, it just felt like it was the same thing over and over. There was also a lack of real transformation when it came to different levels and missions. They all sort of seemed to mirror each other in some form. There were certain aspects of the game that sure were pretty cool. Some of the boss fights in itself were pretty cool, but at the end of the day, they all started kind of feeling the same. It just felt so repetitive. And I do think some of that might have happened because I didn't realize that I was fighting against a super bad boss or something, or I didn't really understand the intensity of the situation, just because the story itself didn't really grab me, and so I wasn't following along with that. Sometimes those sort of things can be quite a momentum shift, in certain games. The intensity of the moment that has been built up can sort of make up for repetition. Now, I will say though, of all the negative I've talked about it, there is some positive to this. But one, the game actually looks really good, and the performance was spot on. Even on the Switch, I did not have any sort of issues. There's no lag, no nothing. The controls were very tight and responsive. I also have to say the music, really good. Although, there again, another issue that at least fans of the series had told me was the music was just snippets. It wasn't the full songs, and that was a huge problem for them, as they're familiar with the songs. They love the songs. They wanted to hear them all instead of just like these shortened versions. And I get that. I totally do. Again, as a newcomer, I didn't really notice it because I've never heard those songs before, and what they were playing actually sounded really good to me, but I completely understand the frustration of not hearing the entire song. Now, my other big issue with this game has to be the price. It is $39.99, and that just feels super premium, especially for a shoot 'em up done in that almost retro style. Yes, there is some newer aspects to it, but you have to recognize that there is no cutscenes in this game. In fact, the production level doesn't seem that high quality, if you ask me. Again, what is on there looks good, but it does seem a bit dated, and just for that price tag, it seems like a lot, especially because I'm a little confused about where the series is going. Because it was a standard, definitive reboot, or even just revisiting the past, something of that nature, I would probably be more inclined to spending that kind of money. But as it sits, I just feel like it's a little confused on which way it's going, what direction they're taking, and is this truly a step in the right direction for the series? Is the series itself going to release more games? I don't know. But for me, it just feels like it's a little too overpriced, and so I honestly would say I would wait for a sale if you're interested in it, and even then I think it would have to be a pretty deep sale. If I was going to give it a number score, it would be a 5 out of 10, and part of that is being drugged down by the price itself. Had it been a $20 game, this might be closer to a 6 out of 10. It's still nothing that's going to be in the top echelon because of all the problems that I mentioned, but I just feel like the price itself separates it from even being a mid game because of that price. But that's my thoughts on Macross Shooting Insight. Please let me know what your thoughts are down below. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Love y'all. Bye-bye.